Are we ready to start?
It's all you, Kels.
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to give people another few minutes to join. Um, how's everyone doing today?
Good.
Good.
Oh, well.
You can tell me in the chat how you're doing. I like to hear how people are doing. All these new, oh, and excellent. That's great. And I was on a call yesterday and fabulous. Oh my goodness. Thanks, Brandon. I was on a call yesterday and all the first people were like, anxious and I'm, tired or I'm this or that. And then the one guy said, I'm joyful. And everybody was like, yes, we got one. That's joyful. Woohoo. It was good. It helped actually lift the mood of the whole rest of the meeting, I think. So I think we're going to go ahead because we have a full schedule today, and I'm happy to be here. Welcome, everybody. I'm Kelsey Liverpool, the co-founder and executive director of KidsRank, and we are hosting our Foundations Conversation series around how we do a better job of supporting the mental health and well-being of military and veteran children. And this technically is our first session where we have guests. So the last session that we did last month was just the kickoff to tell you what we had going on. And so I'm excited to say that we have some guests today who I'll be happy to introduce. But we're framing this around November. Most people know for Veterans Day, but it also is Month of the Military Family. And so it's a time that we can really think about how military culture impacts the family and how we navigate. And kind of framing this up, I think there is kind of a lot of times a singular perspective of what a military family looks like, that there might be a dad who's active duty with his wife and 2 children, and that's kind of what the structure looks like. But things can vary based on what branch of service people are in. It could be the mom that is a service member. You can have dual military. You have your National Guard and Reserve components. And so things can look very differently with access to resources and services based on what status you're in. Veteran families may have very different resources available to them than an active duty service member. So today we're going to talk about that a little. I'm excited. We're joined by Focus and Jessica Tyson from Focus. She's going to share about some of the resiliency training that they do for families, which it's just such a great resource. So I'm glad to have them as a part of our session today. So I think, why don't we go ahead and start with Jessica. Hi, Jessica. How are you today?
Hi, Kelsey. Thanks for the opportunity to join you today. I'm really excited to just share a little bit about what we've learned in the past 12 years of working with military families and really providing training to help increase resilience in families. So it's been an absolute pleasure.
It's fantastic. So I'm going to hand it over to you and let you get started, and then I'm looking forward to hearing a presentation.
Sure. So just to let you know, I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor, and I'm a supervisor with the Focus program. And I've been with the program since 2008. And we work with military families and couples providing resilience training. And I think that in this work with this population, we hear about resilience a lot. And I'd like to just share a little bit about our approach to supporting families. So next slide, please. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of stress on military families. I'm going to share a little bit of information about our strengths-based approach and really that family systems approach to increase resilience across the entire family. And then I thought it would be helpful just to share some practical tips of ways that we can help really increase healthy routines and resilience for families. And at the end, I'm going to share just a little bit about focus and how our program supports military families. Next slide. Great. So this is the family operational stress continuum, and this is something that we adapted from the U.S. Marine Corps' combat operational stress continuum. I think one of the things to think about when we structure our approach to military families is to recognize that the entire family is impacted by that service member's responsibilities and their service to the country. And so one of the things that can be really helpful is to look at how stress may impact the family. So using this continuum, when families are really at their best and routines are regular and communication is strong and they're kind of their most ready, they're in that green zone. Many of our families experience a lot of external stressors related to transitions and shifting needs and shifting roles. So those stressors might push a family into the yellow zone. And we might experience some changes around those reactions, like increased worry amongst some family members, changes in behavior from kiddos, or maybe just some more challenges with communication or closeness. And then as we transition into that orange zone, this is typically when there's more significant or cumulative impact of stress. So this might be where we're seeing maybe more significant behavior issues with certain family members, or maybe more significant conflict within those relationships. Or we may have somebody who is experiencing an injury or illness. And then as we transition into the red, this is where we're really starting to see more of the stress injuries, and we're starting to see persistent symptoms. We're starting to see those really concerning behaviors. And if you look at this continuum, you'll also notice across the bottom, it talks about our ability to kind of self-soothe and engage self-help. And then where we kind of start to cross over into needing intervention and professional help. This framework can be really helpful in identifying where the starting place for a family is, because we all have different stressors and experiences that may push us toward the right of this continuum. And we want to really make sure that families are resourced and supported in appropriate ways so that we can help to kind of keep them more on the left side. We all will experience stress and might shift a little here or there, but we definitely want to look at overall family health when we're talking about our military folks. Next slide, please. So some of the things that can contribute, some of those stressors that again might push us toward the right, are those frequent separations from primary caregivers, the different transitions that our families experience, whether those be PCS moves or transitions from active duty to retirement or reserve status, the changing roles within the family, increased stress on primary caregivers who are maybe managing multiple things while that service member is away as part of their duty. There also may be some challenges in consistent social support. So when we think about the frequent transitions, PCS moves, school changes, all of those things can have a significant impact on the family. We also know that combat exposure for that military parent can have an impact on the family when we look at, reunion, reintegration, and some of the shifts and changes and challenges that occur for families. We really want to lean in with support and make sure that we provide appropriate resources. Next slide, please. So what I love about Focus, one of the many things that I love about Focus, is we do mirror the military approach of really like training and being ready. And one of the things that we foundationally believe is that family cohesion and family health is essential to mission readiness. The stronger that home base is, the more that that service member is able to really be focused on the work at hand when they are serving. So we really look to find ways to strengthen the cohesiveness within the family. Our program is a confidential service. We do offer our sessions at flexible times to help accommodate the needs. Kelsey, as you pointed out, our military families are not one size fits all. We have single parents, we have dual active duty, we have folks with different needs and demands, and we really want to meet them where they're at. We also really want to make sure that the skills that we provide them are relevant and helpful, not only for the current challenge that they're facing. For some families, it may be that, you know, I have a 6th grader who's having a really tough transition because this has been 5 PCSs in 6 years, or, you know, there's been some significant challenges. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, the challenge is different, and it's related to helping that family transition toward retirement or toward the next step. Maybe spouse is moving toward career progression or things like that. So we like to really use universal skills that are going to have application in a sustainable way. And we really try to be proactive. One of the things that I love to say is whether a family is in the green, yellow, orange, or even in the red, Focus can provide some help. Now, if they are having more significant injury or illness, we want to make sure that we pull in additional resources. And if there's individual supports needed as well, that we do that. Additionally, if they're green and things are going well, then this is a great place for them to be, because we're going to make strong families even stronger. Next slide, please. So I think one of the things that's really helpful in talking about the Focus program is the framework that we use. And one of the things that I think provides the structure is talking in terms of the core elements. So Focus takes a very intentional approach to working with families. We provide real-time check-ins. So these are brief assessments that help to provide that trainer, and we use resilience trainers to provide this training to the families, a snapshot of the family's current level of functioning, as well as areas of strength and maybe growth opportunities where Focus skills might plug in for them. So that real-time needs assessment of meeting them where they're at. Additionally, we provide family level education. That family specific psychoeducation is really critical in helping to address the current needs. Some families have preschoolers and need support around sleep hygiene and managing challenging behaviors. Other families might be dealing with issues where there's, you know, maybe the parents need to get on the same page around communication or preparing for a transition. One of the other things that Focus does that I think is really impactful for families is we do create a family narrative. Again, when we look at a family, we may as a family have experienced 3 or 4 PCS moves and 4 combat deployments and different transitions, but each individual within that family might have a different perspective or things that are most salient about those experiences. So we really want to give them an opportunity to share their experience and have those experiences validated by family members. This is really critical in being able to move forward. So the narrative is really one of the key elements of the program. And then, as I said, we take this resilience and training approach. So we want to make sure that we empower families with useful skills, emotion regulation. We hear that if you can name it, you can tame it, right? That's exactly what this skill does. It helps families, children, and adults to be able to identify and express those feelings so that they can better get their needs met. We work on family level communication. We take a direct approach to family level problem solving and working together on goal setting, and also helping with strategies to manage the different reminders that our families might experience related to their service and those different experiences that they may have. Next slide, please. So you probably saw my face light up a little bit when I mentioned emotion regulation. I think, just such an amazing tool. So at Focus, one of the main vehicles that we use for helping to teach emotion regulation across the family is our feeling thermometer. The feeling thermometer, you may notice, has that same color coding system as the FOSC that I showed you a little bit earlier. And this is a continuum of comfort. The key difference here is with the feeling thermometer, we may move up and down that thermometer multiple times a day. And it's really just kind of a way to identify how comfortable I am in that moment. So if my alarm clock goes off in the morning, I associate that want want with shooting me up to maybe like about that 30 and I'm in the yellow. But when I get that first hot cup of coffee, I might get down, to 5 in the green, right? But if there's chores to do or deadlines or things like that, that might push me a little bit higher. It's important to use a tool like this so that we can create this shared language across the family. So if my kiddo is coming home from school or from an interaction and they're saying they're in the yellow or they're in the orange, that's going to impact my approach, and also what tools I might use to help support them. Same thing, if I'm having, as a parent, I want to make sure that I'm modeling this. If I'm having a tough time or a tough day, I might say, mom's in the orange right now. And that might let my other family members know that, I need a moment. And this maybe is something where I might need to go on a walk. I might need to talk it out. Again, it's not one size fits all, but looking at ways to help to bring it down. Again, we completely normalize that we might move up and down that thermometer multiple times a day, but we want to really look for ways to spend as much time on the lower end of the thermometer as we can, because that's going to have a positive impact on our interactions with our family members and those that we care about. Next slide, please. So just a few quick tips on ways that we help to encourage and foster resilience in military families. We really talk a lot on the individual family level about the importance of routines. So much, especially for our military and veteran families, is out of their control, right? A lot of these external things, when orders happen, what travel restrictions, different things that may go on, are things that are outside of our control. But what are the things that we do have some control over, and how can we establish routines to help manage that? And then when we do experience change, like move to a new duty station or changes in caregiving responsibilities where maybe tasks were split and now one person is covering down on some of those, establishing new routines as needed and really figuring out what's going to be functional and helpful for the family in moving forward toward their goals. Next slide, please. One of the other things, especially when we think about like right now with a lot of folks who are adjusting to teleworking, with virtual learning and all of the different things that might come up, we do really also encourage the use of what we call psychological bridges. So ways to really kind of make sure that we're structuring our day, again, with the end goal of spending more time on the lower end of that thermometer. So simple things like getting dressed for your day, setting up physical boundaries. So if I'm working from home, is the office door closed during 8 to 12 so that I can work in that environment? What is the plan for us to take intentional breaks? How do we kind of help to manage and navigate those things? Also, if I'm working from home, when do I shut down the computer, close it, shut the door to the office, and leave work so that I'm not perpetually in front of the laptop and feeling like there's no break? So we just really want to help to encourage that structure to help mark those transitions and really help to kind of keep everybody knowing what to expect and kind of more even and level. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we encourage all of our families to do is work on holding routine family meetings. This can be a really proactive strategy to help families get out in front of transitions or stressors that may come up. We do provide guidance and included in this handout about tips for really structuring that. You want the family to decide when and where these meetings are going to happen, to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to speak and share. For some families, we use a speaking stick or a stuffed animal and pass it around. It really essentially is an opportunity to get everybody on the same page. And for kids as well as adults, when we know what to expect, we get better outcomes. And that's exactly what this is targeting. Next slide, please. We also encourage families to look for ways to stay connected with one another. Sometimes it may, especially now, if we are in isolation together or spending a lot of time together and not leaving the home much, it may be a little bit harder to find the balance between family time and personal care. So we really encourage families to look at where are those opportunities to spend pleasurable time together and to be creative. If we can't do the same things that we used to do, are there maybe some modifications? We also want to encourage just, finding ways to connect with friends and getting those social supports. Next slide, please. So our program offers 6 to 8 sessions, a combination of parent only, child only, and whole family sessions. This is our website, focusproject.org. It has a list of all of the installations where we provide focus services, as well as a tab about our teleservices, which are available virtually, and just a ton of wonderful resources for military families. Next slide, please. So in addition to our website, we do have a Focus Facebook page and an app that is great for kids as young as 3 years old. And through our webpage, you can also access Focus World, where again, it's an interactive way to engage skills and tools. And there's also a library of videos and resources for families as well there. So I encourage you to check those out.
So thank you, Jessica. That was, I was really excited when we decided to do a session on families, and Focus was really my first choice for a lot of reasons. I love for us, like focusing on authentically military, so the training and being ready. I mean, we try to mirror those same kinds of things in the programming that we do, because I feel like it really grounds, families in understanding that we understand where you're coming from because we're part of your culture, which is really great. And the idea that if the family is settled, right, as a whole, then the service member is able to focus on what they need to do in their jobs, which is supremely important. I don't think that gets enough credit. The idea that the service member is not alone in a bubble. So whether the service member are become veteran status, that it's the whole family that is a consideration. And I love that Focus is really, invested in that. And it's about the whole family involving the kids, which, obviously we are near for kids, right? That's our whole thing. And so the idea that you as a program, are addressing the parents individually and then the children, and then bringing it back together, because I think this holistic model just makes so much sense in how we, start to work with families. And how we are, creating services for them, individually, but, looking at them as a whole. So I want to first thank you again for being a part of this, and I'm glad that we're able to, again, share, because that we love to share resources that we feel are very important and will be meaningful for our families. So thank you. So we'll have some time for questions for Jessica in a little bit, unless there's some there was a question about you being a national program. So you guys are a national program?
So we are a DoD funded program, and we have 25 service delivery locations, and you can see all of those listed on our focusproject.org website. And then I would just encourage anybody that has a question about focus or telefocus services, reach out to us and we can help to see if it might be a good fit for you or for your family.
Yeah, we're hoping to do a focus training here in our area because I think it's a valuable resource. So we'll work to see about having that happen. So let me get into now some of the real world family talks. I'm excited to have our panel joining us today. And so I wanted to start by just maybe introducing myself and telling you a little bit about, you know, who am I and how I fit within this military family. And then we'll introduce some of our other guests today. So I do have to say, so I'm Kelsey, and I was a military spouse for 17 years, Navy. I come from artist parents in Philadelphia, and actually today is my mother's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. So, I had no background in military families. My dad actually was probably one of the last, the draft ended in 1973. And so he did go to Vietnam, he and my uncle, in, I guess, maybe 70. So he was in Vietnam. And then my grandfather also was in the Army. But I had no real experience with it until I got married. And I got married in my early 20s. And we moved to Virginia, and I had my first daughter at Langley Air Force Base. And then we moved to Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia, where I'm from, because Rudy did recruiting in Philadelphia, and had our second daughter, Nina. And then we were set to go to Japan, and he left 6 months before we did. And I had to sell our house and our cars, and I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I had to schlep us and all our stuff to Japan by myself. And of course, when he left, my kids both got like pneumonia, and I got like a severe sinus infection like the day he left, and for Japan, which is how that always happens. And so it's been a roller coaster. And so for me, my journey, which doesn't always get talked about, I ended up after 17 years getting divorced, and it was almost a loss of identity, being married for 17 years and being a part of this culture, almost feeling that disconnect and not knowing really how to identify. I'm not a military spouse anymore. I don't have access to the base. I don't have health care anymore through TRICARE. And so what do I do? And I felt like almost like an outsider, even though I run a program for military children and I work with military families is what I do. But I still have military children, and I've, over the years, have learned to give myself a little grace that, you know, understanding that this is a lot of military families situation, that a lot of us are blended families. There's divorce, there's single parents, and, you know, there are just so many different types. The military, it does put a certain amount of strain on relationships between people. And for us, you know, you grow apart, and it was almost like, you know, we didn't know. He did so much time. I always joked and said more than half of my marriage we spent apart. And that's the reality of military lifestyle. And you become accustomed to it. I became a seasoned spouse, you know, so I went from being the young spouse that didn't know anything and the ins and outs to a seasoned spouse where, you know, I don't know, I guess I didn't envision myself in that way, but I did. I knew the ins and outs of how to, you know, kind of navigate some of the space and, you know, some of the challenges that come up. And I, you know, then I'm able to share with younger spouses that might be experiencing challenges. And I think that's the culture. You know, I think you look to pour back when you become a seasoned spouse, you begin to pour back into, you know, because you remember when you were first starting out and, you know, you knew nothing and you're trying to pack up your stuff. I'm very efficient at packing now, I have to say. So, you know, we move quickly. So, but I want to move on to some of our, so just full transparency, military culture. One of our speakers today Troy. He is active duty. He will be here, but he's active duty. So he will be speaking with us later. So we're going to actually start out with Kara Loken. And so Kara is a National Guard spouse. She was actually the 2016 National Spouse of the Year through the Military Spouse Insurance. What is it? It's the, oh my goodness, I just drew a blank.
The Armed Forces Insurance.
Armed Forces Insurance, yes.
It's okay. You say it enough, you remember.
So I'm not going to do any more because Kara's going to tell us about her.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here, and thank you for asking me to join this, Kelsey. This is great. So I'm looking forward to learning more things. So what my job is I'm a Yellow Ribbon Support Specialist at our base for the Air National Guard. And what that is we do events for pre-deployments, during deployments, and post-deployments for the service member, their families, and we do those. Right now we're doing them, as you know, because of COVID, we're doing them virtually and online, which it's safe, so that's great. So I love my job. I love what I do. I love to see the families and the members and get them prepared for deployment, because that is such a stressful time. And so I know, I shouldn't say I know, the first deployment was rough for us. So learning this, I actually volunteered for this program almost like the second time we had an event. So about 10 years I helped with that, and then finally got hired on as that position. And like, I love it. I learned so much, so many resources and help for the families that I can pass along. And now doing the program, it's better because now I have that one-on-one with the members and their families. And I do enjoy that. I am a military spouse of 21 years. My husband's a lieutenant colonel in the Air National Guard. He's the commander of the maintenance squadron. So he has one of the biggest squadrons on the base. He's always been in maintenance since we've been married. He did start, he's been in for 30 years. November 8th was his 30-year anniversary. And before we were married, he was in the Army Guard. And so I know nothing about the Army Guard. I didn't know anything about that. When we met, he had just transitioned over to the Air Guard. So all I remember is wearing his blue uniform, his dress uniform, and very proud of him. So we've had, 21 years experience. I've been a volunteer out at the base for that long. So that helps because I can, learn about the families, what they need, and not only just the spouses, but the parents as well. They're kind of lost as far as navigating, what the needs are, what's going on, that's their kids, that's their babies. And being a mom of a military person was harder, I think, sometimes than being a spouse. My oldest, he's 34, will be 35. He was in the Army active duty, and he was in the airborne. He deployed to Afghanistan, and my husband was in Iraq at the same time in 2011. That was very stressful. I don't wish that upon anybody. And I was more worried about my son. That was his first deployment, and that was hard. My husband, when he was in Iraq, that was stressful. So not only can I help sympathize and empathize with the parents as well as the spouses. My husband's deployed on 3 long deployments, 1 a shorter deployment, and a lot of really small, 30 days, 60 days. So he's been gone more than he's almost been home. And that as we're talking about, that's very stressful to try to navigate that situation. And being a guard, we don't live on a base, we live in the community. So it's hard to have that cohesiveness with everybody else. So we're kind of not necessarily on our own, because we're not, but we're not together with everybody else. And that does make it a little bit harder for us. And the kids to understand, there are other people going through that same thing that they're going through, because we just don't see those people and all the time. So that's being a guard person. That's one of the things that we don't have as an active duty person. So anyway, one more thing about me. I guess that we've moved twice. We moved to Oklahoma once for flight school, and then we moved to Alabama, which was probably my favorite place to go. And I've met so many great people, and I'm still friends with them. We were there in 2014 and 15, I believe, and just met some really great people. But it was on an active duty type base. So just to see that difference was incredible, to see how great that active duty family comes together and helps. So I was blessed to see that also. So I was privileged. I also, because my son was in Afghanistan, he had some issues. So he was diagnosed with PTSD. That was hard. That was hard to see. That was hard to, it's hard to watch that. But watching him paint and draw and make stuff and do things kind of helped his symptoms a lot. So watching him for like a couple months, going from angry to sewing a stocking, Christmas stocking for his daughter or himself, and those symptoms subsided dramatically. Just watching him, I started a program. It's called Hearts for Healing. And what we do is we have art for the veterans, military families, caregivers, kids. We do caregiver retreats once a year. And it's my way to give back. I love art. My husband's a blacksmith by trade. He's been doing that since he was little with his dad. So he's an artist. I'm an artist. So we, art's in our family. My oldest, he is so talented by drawing and painting and crafting. And my youngest, he tries super hard and he's doing good. He does with my paint classes and stuff. So he's doing great. But yeah, that's why just watching him and watching his difficulties, and it was heartbreaking to watch that as a mom, knowing that he was struggling and there's nothing really you can do except for just be there for them. So that's why we started that. We love it. We've been doing it for 4 years. We've been doing it since 2016. We finally just put it in for our nonprofit because we want to get bigger and expand our program. And I started teaching classes for the VA. That my first class actually is tomorrow. We're going to do that all virtually. And I'm going to teach classes for the VA caregivers as well. I do teach art classes at the VFW, and I do teach them at a base when we can actually start having them again. And I help the kids. We do an art program for the kids, which was awesome. We started, we had a class before COVID, and then we had like a bunch of kids. Our next class was going to be even bigger. Then we had COVID, and then it kind of put a damper on everything. So we're getting ready to start that back up, and we're going to start doing those virtually for the kids again, at least get them started with that. But yes, I'm happy to be here. Happy to answer any questions. And Kelsey, thank you again for letting me come and kind of tell my story. And
so I'm going to toot your horn really quickly. So
okay.
Kara also has, because she doesn't do enough, has written a couple. She sent me these books, and they're really to support military children. When I talk about how we pour back into our own community, this is an example of this. And this is me. It's a creative journal, art journal for military children, which is, I was saying, we did so many road trips. It would have been amazing to have this in the car, because they have activity. Oh, you can't see. Oh, well, I'm just. There are activities where you can draw, but it also has stories and pictures of military children, and it just makes it a real. They can keep a journal of what their experiences have been, and I think that we'll talk about it actually next month for our next session, we're working with the National Veterans Art Museum on this art therapy program. So this is really timely, talking about that there are ways to support families, that go outside of, clinical, and on that scale that Jessica was talking about, for focus, that, you have that, where they're ready versus ill. And so, where they might need, supportive resources versus professional help, things like these art therapy, those are really wonderful resources, and they're out there that support our kids. So we'll come back for questions, but I want to be able to, we're going to now have talk to Major D Love, best name ever. Hi D, good morning. So you're muted. I think you're muted.
Yeah, unmute. Can everyone hear me?
Okay, now we can. So I have met Dee through our Chicago veterans group. I mean, Chicago has a really great veteran community, and I know how Dee loves her son, and how so much of what she does as a person is directly related to how it's going to impact her son. So I thought that she'd be a really great panelist today to come talk from a different perspective about what she does and who she is, a family. Take it.
All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're at. I'm Major Dina Love. Well, everyone calls me Dee, so Major D Love. As Kelsey said, Chicago native. I'm currently stationed here for ROTC assignment. I've been active duty Army since 2008, and I've been a mom since 2011. We've been here in Chicago now since 2017. And some of the biggest challenges that I've faced is balancing that active duty life with being a mom. Our journey started at Fort Stewart, Georgia. During that time, and there's the true hero right there, Malik. Because during that time, I was dual military. Unfortunately, I'm no longer married. And a lot of those biggest things that you'll see during that dual military relationship are trying to stay together, balance careers, things of that nature. Being a major, I'm now a field grade officer, and trying to ensure that my career, my goals, my vision isn't affecting the health of my child, making sure that he comes first and everything. Right now, I am getting ready to retire from the military because at the end of the day, what all the glitz, the glories, the badges and everything, if I don't have my family, my son, my rock, my foundation to show for it. So, as you see, we started at Fort Stewart, Georgia, his second PCS. His first PCS was in Fort Lee, Virginia. By the grace of God, I had my mom with me. Because during those times, my then husband and I, we spent more time apart than we did actually together. Then he went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. In that picture right there, he actually got a chance to see his mom jump out of a Black Hawk and earn my German jump wings. So literally my world was on my shoulder. So for every event, I really got a chance to have him with me through it. But now that we got a chance to come home and be here in Chicago, I would say one of the biggest things for me was just really creating that stability during the times where it was feasible for us to move, when he wasn't in a situation where grades mattered, where foundational friendships mattered. Then it didn't necessarily impact my decisions on moving as much. But now that he's in grade school, it really just took precedence over anything Army for me. And that right there really just had to make me buckle down and act, which is of greater importance, this career, this lifestyle, or my son. And that right there was just the biggest turning point, which then made me focus too on my health. And if I'm not healthy and if I'm not okay. So getting ready to medically retire, calling Chicago, which is home for me, home for us as well. He's in a great school. And at the end of the day, you know, regardless of how great all of our careers are, we're all going to take this uniform off and our families are going to be there. So, you know, I encourage every soldier, airman, seaman, you know, Coast Guard person, Marine to look at it in that perspective of things, because we can only wear the uniform for so long, but our family is our foundation, and to just, regardless of how great the accolades are, to look at it from that perspective and to do what's in their best interest. So.
Thank you, Dee. I mean, it's such a different perspective. I mean, I think people traditionally think of the service member being, you know, a man, and to have a, you know, a mother as a service member is a really different, you know, way of seeing family and the sacrifices that are made based on that. And, you know, I think a common theme is that, you know, family, you know, you have to make a decision based on your family, right? So, you know, to hear you say that now you're thinking of getting out because of, you know, the stability of your son, that was true for me as well. We stayed because the school happened to be really good for our daughters. And so that was one of our decisions for staying in this area. And I know a lot of people that also have, you know, are making decisions whether they stay in, you know, if there are better resources for families, support systems where they're living, you know, that makes you feel like it's okay to stay in. You know, my family is taken care of, you know, just what Jessica was saying, that the family structure is good. You know, I feel like they're safe. I feel that they are being taken care of. So now I, you know, will, you know, I can do my job and focus on my job. So why don't we open up for some group conversation between, you know, between Jessica and Kara and Dee, just to, I actually had a couple questions, and we can kind of do it round style, you know, where I would just, you know, ask, how do you feel like support for the kids, for military, you know, you all are parents and have been in this life. How have you experienced, you know, kind of mental health support for your kids throughout the years?
Well, I guess I'll start. I would say just from an installation perspective. So I've dealt with it from both sides. Installation wise, it's been great. When we went through like the divorce period on Fort Bragg, we had our mental health resources there. Just because, you know, during divorce, and I'll be very transparent, I'm a survivor of sexual assault. So there's no way that I can say that that impacts me and doesn't impact my son. So naturally, you know, being a responsible parent, I sought therapy for my child as well, just to make sure that he was covered. So those resources were available for him on the military side of things. Now that we're here stationed in Chicago, you know, it's a different playing field, right? Because typically we're on our installations, everything is just like black and white, you know which way to go. So when you're on these remote type of locations, it becomes, you know, a bit more different. But that's when you just kind of have to fish, you know. So when you go and you utilize your TRICARE and you start to actually search for those places that use TRICARE. In my situation, our counselors at the school were very helpful because, you know, even though Malik was adjusting very well here and doing great in school, I always make it a priority because I know, you know, with me being busy and going, I know that he needs a sounding board too. So just always, if I need counseling and I'm undergoing trauma, wanted to make sure that he has that same outlet of things. So working with the school's counselors and letting them know what our insurance were, you know, she looked as well and then sought to make sure that she could find a counselor that would fit our family needs too, that also took our insurance, that took TRICARE as well. So, you know, just utilizing the TRICARE website and looking for providers helped us to find those counseling services here in Chicago. So, when you're in remote locations, it takes a little bit more work, but the resources are there. And you'll find there's a lot more providers that take our insurance than you believe. So,
I think Kara can relate to that.
I'm like, yeah.
Being in the civilian community. I mean, maybe you can speak to that a little, Kara, about being, the military family in a civilian community. And
Yeah, so like on our base, we have our director of psychological health. So we can go, not necessarily me, myself, but like my husband, let's say. I know when my husband was deployed this last time, my youngest was having issues. So I did go and talk to the director of psychological health. And I'm like, can you help me? What are my outside resources for him? Because, there might be some that are better than others and where we can go. So like, we have TRICARE only during active duty time, right? So if he's deployed, other than that, we rely on his civilian job, his insurance, which is great because he works for the VA. So it's still a government, job, but not everybody has that. So what that was is she gave me recommendations, which were fantastic. So there's always the, Military One Source can help with mental health for so many sessions. Outside in the community, there's those kind of counselors and that kind of stuff, which we relied on heavily, which was great because they were, we use them quite a bit. We send people to them as Lutheran Family Services, which they are very good with our members and their families. So, but trying to, I'm close to a base. Like I said, we don't live on a base, but like I work at a base, right? So I work on our installation at our base. And so I know the people, but I know that like, if I wasn't working there, where do I go? Where can we get help? He's gone. What can I do? But I know that, if you have that support of your base, like maintenance, for instance, he's been in there, like I said, for, his 21 years that he's been there in maintenance, or 22. And I know the people, I've made relationships with them, but some people might not if they're new or whatever. So we try as a team, we have a care team where we try to get those people what they need, the families what they need, the members what they need, because sometimes the member might need something while they're overseas. There's always issues that arise, which Major, you would, that not everything's perfect when you deploy or whatever. But we want to have that stability at home because if not, that doesn't help that member when my husband, when he's deployed, let's say. Like I didn't tell my husband that my son was having issues because he was deployed, because that was going to create problems for him while he was deployed. I didn't tell him till, and he was upset with me. And I said, well, you can't do anything, it wasn't going to help your job over there. And it was taken care of it, so that disconnect and not being on a base, knowing that's fantastic. Like I said, Alabama was, outstanding. Yeah. And then coming back, it was like a total transition. Just being gone for a year, just trying to even transition back to that was quite a bit. Now I got to figure out how to live in the, the community again and have to rely on those resources and stuff. But most Guard families, they already know because we're already in that community. So we already know, hey, this is my doctor. I can go to my doctor and he's going to recommend somebody, blah, 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 for me to go to or whatever. But it's always nice to have these extra like focus, like I didn't even know anything about you until today. So I'll be looking you up because I have some appointments coming up. So I think you'd be great for our base. So this is great, because now I'm finding new resources and I'm always looking for new resources for our members and our families and even our veterans, because like you said, Major, eventually that uniform does come off and that's a hard transition. And sometimes it's not good. We're not good at transitioning members into the civilian world because that's a totally different.
It is.
Around.
And what you just said is a really great segue. And I'd like to open it up for some, if anybody on the call has some questions, around community and support, like not knowing Focus, which is a really wonderful resource. I think that the more that we're able to share, so, are there, us being such a small population, we need to start making connections in our civilian community as well. So we need our civilian friends, programming that's tailored for us, but then also partners that are in our civilian community. And what does that look like? And so, what does support around military families look like? And how can we engage our civilian friends in doing that? And some of that is the education, within our community, but then also outside of our community. So I would open it to if there are any questions, for our family members, any questions or comments around, support for military families. Please feel free to put them in the chat. But I would ask Jessica, what would you, and I guess I'm asking this to everyone, what do you think, support, if the world were perfect and we had all these resources available to us, what would a supportive community look like for military families and their kids?
So Kelsey, I love this question. And I'll say, the philosophy that we embody at Focus is there's no wrong door. So if I get someone that reaches out to me and maybe they need specific help and Focus isn't the best place for them to receive that help, I'm going to do a warm handoff to a service or resource that's available. So that's why it's really important for me as a provider to be informed on the resources, the needs of my community, and to offer a menu and myriad of options that are available. I think that one of the things that I appreciate, I grew up in a military family. My dad was active duty and retired. I'm the parent of a 16 and 18-year-old, and my husband's been active duty for 19 years. So, I not only have worked with military families my entire career, but I have been in a military family during that time. And one of the things that I really appreciate is how many more resources are available now than when I was a child. And just I think the shift that I've started to see even in the past decade of openness to prevention. One of the things that I love working for a program like Focus is being out in the community and people saying, oh, we just went to Focus, they're amazing. Oh, let me tell my friend, you guys should totally go. You need to ask for Amy, she's a great trainer. And there's no stigma attached to seeking help and learning skills to support your family.
Awesome. Yeah, we had a couple comments. Military OneSource, they do a really great job at kind of compiling, because there is so much information out there. And so, compiling some of that data into, a singular site, and they do offer some counseling resources, plus additional supportive resources for families, which is really, really great. Walida said the Multi-Faith Veterans Initiative, they're a partner actually of ours as well out of Chicago. And, they really work in connecting and making connections across. Walida, do you want to just pop on real quick and say anything?
Hey, can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the Multi-Faith Veteran Initiative creates circles of care within communities in the city of Chicago. I am a Gold Star mother, and this project started off out of the loss of my son. So really, really understanding that it is a small community, and oftentimes the civilian community has very little awareness of the stresses and the challenges that military families go through, and particularly during the transitioning period. And so what we've done is to create a variety of different site partners throughout the city of Chicago, faith-based institutions, churches, social service agencies that create community hubs. And they themselves then provide a variety of support systems for veterans and their families, and accessibility to services that are accessible in the community. We recognize that everyone cannot access the VA. So, we're here and Kelsey and I, work together. And, I think that this is really an important topic. And, so if you want to learn more about us, we do have a Facebook page now. They dragged me kicking and screaming, but you can reach out to me through my email, and I can connect. And Deanna, I definitely want to talk to you. We have a women's project that we're working on that's focusing on female vets. So I'd like to talk to you about that.
Yeah. Well, I want to be mindful of our time here. We're at right at 1 o'clock. And I first want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. And I want to, it really is such an honor to have you be a part of this. I think that, if we can start continuing these conversations, to me, this is just the opening of a conversation. It's not, kind of the definitive, but just how we start talking about families. And then, for us, as we start really thinking about the children and how we best support them, it has to be a family discussion. I want to thank my team, my Kids Thriving team, Ashley, Kayla, and Meryl, who have been working so hard to make sure that all things run smoothly. So really a huge thank you to them. But I want to kind of leave, anybody that's watching or that will watch this with the idea of we really need to start thinking about how we, as a whole, are supporting our military families and kids. And so, it's just not us as, military members ourselves. I mean, we do tend to get back into it. We want to connect, connect with our civilian communities, because that's how we become stronger. So, all the different resources that are here, that, when military kids move in and out of communities, they go to schools in 80% go to schools in civilian communities. You have, they're going to churches, they're going to community organizations and participating in sports and after school activities. And so it really becomes, they're going to see mental health providers that are in our civilian community, because at least in Chicago, I know the VA doesn't see kids for mental health. So they're going to see civilian providers. So how are we collectively, through our resource and networks, making sure that we're filling gaps so that our kids and families don't fall through, in whatever stage that they're in service. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And we will be posting this video on YouTube, on our website, all of those good things. And we really want to continue the conversation. We're looking forward to this being the beginning. So we'd love to see a training with Focus after this, because again, we want to learn about some of the resources, but then also be able to talk about how we make the connection to implement them. So any last words from anybody before we sign off?
Just remember for those to bridge that gap between the military and the community, because honestly, like in my community, they have no idea. They want to help. They want to do things for the military. They just don't know how or where to start. And I know that we can use the community's help. I know, active duty could, we all can. And they are more than willing to help us. They just don't know where to start or how to help. So bridging that gap is so important. And I worked on that for years. And we got great working relationships with a lot of our community, with our military, because they really do. So when you're out there, just make that connection, and they will ask you, what do you guys need, or how are things, and they'll start asking questions and just answer them honestly. And that's all they need, is just to know, because a lot of people don't know what goes on in military families and how they struggle and stuff unless we talk about it, right? We can always have that big perfect world in our, in our own minds or whatever, but we all know that it's not perfect, and we all struggle quite a bit. My least favorite thing is, like, if my husband's gone for like 6 months or longer, and I see somebody that's, crying or whining because their spouse is gone for a week. And I'm like, I'll trade you any day of the week, right? we can trade. So yeah, it's just if talking more about it, I think that helps too, because a lot of times people just don't know that we're still going to wars. We're still doing all of these things, and they just don't know. And just kind of explaining stuff to people. I think that the community and the civilian world would help a lot. So bridging that gap would make a huge difference is how I feel. So, and thank you for having me, Kelsey. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
And for me, just the word to all of my service members, especially those of us who are parents, just remember everything that we go through as service members is very atypical to a normal civilian. That's why they thank us for our service. But with everything we go through, it is a form of trauma. So make sure that you're taking care of yourselves, but also be very responsible to ensure that you're taking care of your families, especially our children. Children, they grow rapidly. So yes, they're very resilient, but make sure that they have an outlet too. And in that outlet, mental health is a very, very, very important thing for them. So ensure that our family members, especially our children, are being taken care of in that mental health aspect of things. Mental health in that respect is not a crutch, because a lot of times we get that stigma as service members going to behavioral health is the worst thing ever. But in truth, it's showing a level of strength and resilience for yourself of taking care of yourselves and especially taking care of your family, because the stronger that you are mentally, the stronger that they are mentally, the stronger that you become as a service member and as a force to our country that we support and defend. So make sure that you're taking care of the force that's keeping you in the fight.
Thanks, Dee. Jessica, any parting words?
Thank you for the opportunity. We love military families and really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. And join us next month. We'll be hosting our session with the National Veterans Art Museum in Chicago and our We Are Resilience exhibition, which is, I've said it before, is probably one of my favorite programs that we've done to date. So I look forward to sharing that all with you, and we'll see you next month.
Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving,
Bye, everybody.